A woman should be who and what she wants. We support the multifaceted woman, the woman embracing many titles, undertaking different ventures, and building generational wealth. You are a Jackie of all trades, master of your empire. Enterprise Empress, you are an unstoppable force. Welcome back, Empresses, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Today's Jackie. I'm your co-host, Sharon E. Coleman.
I'm Natalie Rowe. Hey, everybody.
And I'm Nady Hornsby.
I am so excited, you guys, about this month. It is Juneteenth, and we're just so excited to celebrate it. Now, if this is your first time on the show, you probably don't know why we call this Today's Jackie. But we call this Today's Jackie Show because we interview women who are Jackie of all trades, master of their empire.
That's right. These are multifaceted women. These are women from the community. They wear many titles, they're undertaking many ventures, and they're building generational wealth.
While sharing with us how to do all of that.
With us how to do it all.
Right. That's what's so great about this show is that we like to focus on the process. We want to be able to share with each other and learn how to stay connected on the journey. A lot of times we focus on the before or the end result, but it's the journey that's important to us. So we have had a long journey when it comes to celebrating Black independence. So we had to start this show off with not one, not two, but three amazing women as our guests.
That's right.
So we have first Cherise Watson. She is a licensed therapist and owner of Cornerstone Center and Counseling. Hi, Cherise.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No, we're so excited for you to be here. So thank you for being our guest. We also have Lucia Davis-Raiford. She is the president and CEO of the Carrie Meek Foundation. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And then we have a friend of mine, Sommer Davis. Sommer is the communications director for the Carrie Meek Foundation, as well as she has a plethora of experience in marketing, public relations, and entertainment and acting. So we're so excited to dive into just that journey with you, Sommer. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be on with you ladies.
We are so excited to have you ladies with us. For those of you who have watched the show before, you'll know that this format is a little different. Normally we have one lady on the show, one Empress that we talk to and we highlight her story. But this month, we really wanted to focus on Black mental health, and we wanted to talk about Juneteenth and celebrate Black independence. So we thought you all were the perfect group to bring together to bring these topics based upon your areas of expertise and what you all are doing to serve in the community right now. So we're just going to have a conversation, right, ladies? This really isn't an interview. We just sitting around and we talking and sharing with each other. Okay.
Girl talk.
Hey.
Yes.
Girl talk.
Okay, cool.
Empress talk.
Empress talk. Right. So we wanted to talk about mental health awareness and what that looks like right now, like in work spaces, in the corporate space. What have you all seen? What do you see in terms of mental health awareness in the corporate arena?
So that's a great question. I think what I've been noticing in the corporate arena with mental health awareness is there's a sensitivity and there's an acknowledgement that mental health is a primary focus, and we want, our staff and our colleagues to be in a good mental space so that they can come and be their best and do their best work. So a lot of talk about mental health days. I know some corporations are encouraging their employees and staff to take time that they need. There's a lot of different things that are going on. And if you're not in a good space, taking that time and restorative time to pour into yourself is really helpful, as well as kind of just connecting to and offering up employee assistance. Like I know there's EAPs. You can speak with, mental health professionals that are on the job about some of the things that you're experiencing, just normalizing that it's okay to not be okay.
I like that. It's okay not to be okay, especially for women, because sometimes we feel like we have to be okay because we have to take care of everyone else. So even if we aren't okay, we'll put on a facade and pretend like we're okay, in order to do the things that we feel like we have to do. So I appreciate you saying that it's okay not to be.
Definitely.
Like that's the first step, right? Like I think it was G.I. Joe that said what is it? Acceptance is like the first step, or acknowledging that you have an issue is the first step. It's half the battle. Yeah. That's so I appreciate that. So do you find the approach that corporations are implementing, like with the EAP and acknowledging the importance of mental health, is that helping, from your experience, Cherise? Is that helping employees to seek the help and to be more forthcoming about their struggles?
I think it's a step in the right direction, and it's just where the employee is, if they're comfortable with taking advantage of, the EAP, if they're comfortable and how they feel about counseling. But I do feel like more people are gravitating towards it, and more people are utilizing these different offerings and options that are presented. The other thing that I notice is like meetings. Sometimes there's back-to-back meetings.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You can sit this one out if, you need to take time. And that helps for your mental health as well. Like those back-to-back meetings can be killer and draining in a sense. So that's just another small thing. So I do think people are gravitating and utilizing what's there.
Cherise, what's so great about that, sorry, Natalie, about what you said, is that it's a very practical and easy thing to consider in our everyday, right? Because when we think of mental health, we immediately think of like therapy, which is important, but just simple little, I can sit this one out because I've had 4 meetings this morning. It's just an easy way to be intentional about your mental health.
Right.
That's right. It's the small things.
Right.
Not always therapy.
And I want to ask Sommer, from a marketing standpoint, do you feel like corporations have incorporated this more? And is that approach helpful, that they're always advertising it now?
I definitely think that the climate nationally that we're facing and looking at with mental health and the struggles that so many people are experiencing have definitely been an indicator for corporations that it's time to handle things differently. And I think we can see a shift in messaging that signifies that.
Right.
Companies are paying a lot more attention to the needs of their employees, which is very important.
Yeah.
And, in order for people to be effective in their jobs, they have to feel like they're supported and like they have the resources to be able to perform. So I definitely am seeing a shift in marketing and communications, just with messaging in terms of the importance of mental health and addressing some of these issues.
So Sommer, just to piggyback on that statement of like a change in messaging, do you think that it's like, you hear about it a lot on social media, do you think it's more of a trend, like a phase, this whole focus on self-care, or do you think it's really a shift in our culture?
I think it's a shift. And I think a pivotal point was during COVID, right? When we really had to stop and breathe, and we, weren't required to necessarily be anywhere for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. I think that was a point where people realized, maybe I need to stop. Maybe I need to focus on me for a second. And it kind of caught up with us. I say all the time, that was like the only time we've ever just been able to just stop and breathe. Life is happening. We lose people, we lose jobs, we have bills, so much is happening in life and we have to keep going. And that was the first time that we really stopped. So I think once that happened, and then we started kind of slowly getting back into work, you started seeing a lot more people, just kind of voicing, I'm not okay. And people creating safe spaces online for them to say that, because so many people were feeling that same way. So I think with social media, I don't think it's necessarily a trend. I think it's more of an acknowledgement that a lot of us are feeling this way, and we've got to do something about it if we're going to make it.
All right.
Yeah. And I wonder how much celebrities coming out and saying, I'm not okay. Like famously, Naomi Osaka, she stopped and she paused at like the height of her career to say, I'm not okay. I need to take a step back and take care of myself and my mental health before I come back on the court. And she did it with a lot of backlash, both from people who supported her and other athletes who came out in support. And then those people are saying that she needed to toughen up. How do you all think celebrities like Naomi coming out and saying like, this is a real issue and it has no barrier, right? So it's not based upon your socioeconomic status. It's not based on your nationality. Like none of those things determine whether or not you have a mental health struggle. How do you think that has affected the in general people's awareness and acceptance of mental health and mental health services?
I think it normalizes for a lot of people, like you said, that mental health is no respecter of persons, and we kind of idolize these entertainers and celebrities and athletes and think that like they're untouchable with some of the things that we experience. And it really just normalized, wow, like if she could do that
right
career, maybe I need to take a look at what I'm doing and not keep going in this rat race. And I'm really not okay and compartmentalizing, acting, just kind of shuffling along. It set an example and it set the tone that other people can take a look at their own mental health and do things differently and put themselves first.
Mm-hmm. Natalie and I always say people above processes with our company. And that's really important in all spaces, but specifically in Black and Brown communities. Lucia, as a business owner and an executive director, how are you navigating around implementing mental health in the culture at the Carrie Meek Foundation?
Well, one thing we know is that there's no one way to do it. We know too little about what mental health even means. And now it's become such a buzzword. We throw it around, I think, with some irresponsibility, as a matter of fact. I think we have a responsibility in our own communities to help our neighbors and our children and our families and our communities understand what we're talking about when we discuss mental health, because it's not just one thing in terms of mental and behavioral health. So our responses to it will be to be as broad and as open as we think we can be in terms of making sure that our community is better equipped to embrace it as an idea, as a concept, as a thing that we have to live with, take care of, and nurture. And a large part of, I think, our challenges, and especially as women of color, we have shouldered over the centuries so many traumas and so many indignities and so many fears. And even in our day-to-day lives right now, we normalize the kind of stress and trauma that we're undergoing, and we move through it. And you know, the myth of the strong Black woman, it's no myth, it's because we do internalize it, and we just keep chugging, pulling, raising our children, taking care of our homes and our men, and living a very, very, very active work lives. And so very often we aren't aware or not sensitive enough to know when we're in pain and when we're in trouble. We chew it up, we swallow it, and we keep moving. So we may very well think that we're very healthy mentally and emotionally, and we're not necessarily. So part of our challenge is going to have to be helping our own people, especially women. I'm a little biased because we carry the world.
That's right.
Understand that you don't know necessarily when you're not okay, but you need to be so self-aware and so self-loving that you understand how you experience pain, stress, trauma, and seek help. And we have to be providers of access to that kind of help.
Yeah. That is the best way to tee up this next question for you, Cherise, right? Because I think that you are at the intersection of woman, Black, mental health professional, right?
Yeah.
And the strength of that is that you make it easier for, women of color to approach you and to, engage in therapy and to seek, the help that we need. But how do you see your role of, all of these things within mental health? Like, what are the strengths and weaknesses, and how do you show up every day in your existence and in this role?
Definitely. I take my role very seriously. And I know that, there's not a lot of Black mental health professionals. So, trying to find and access, representation, that representation matters. And it's hard to find a clinician that is representative of you. So I do not take it lightly. And I'm really honored to be a part of any of my clients' mental health journey. But when you asked about what do I do for me, it is, a kind of a compartmentalization of all the roles, mom, wife, therapist, business owner, just all things. And when I found myself like falling underneath all the tasks, I realized, okay, even though I'm helping and I'm a helping professional, who's going to help me?
Right.
How's going to help me?
That's right.
Yeah.
So I sought out my own therapy to have my own support. I have a strong family support. I have friendships that I can, reach out to friends. So now that I have that in place, I'm able to shoulder all of these things. Because, every lawyer needs a lawyer, every teacher needs a teacher, therapists need therapists just the same.
Bravo.
Right. I don't want to jump past though something Lucia said. She said it's an act of self-love.
Right.
And we don't always love ourselves in this way, to pause and say, let me make sure I'm okay. And I think that's so important because we do carry so many titles and so many responsibilities. We focus so much on other people, but we can't give what we don't have. Like if you're running on empty because you're constantly pouring out, taking care of everybody else, and you think you're okay, right? Because we do it and we go to bed exhausted and we get up the next day and we do it again because these things have to be done. Right? But we aren't loving ourselves by doing that. And just by pausing and saying, even if you don't think you need therapy, and we aren't saying that everyone has to do that, but whatever that self-love and self-care looks like for you to make sure you're okay, like it's okay to do that. The same way you take the kids to the doctor to make sure they had their shots and that they're good. And you make sure, if it's your mom, that your mom is taken care of, make sure that you're taken care of too, because it's an act of love, which actually extends the love that you're giving to those that you're caring for.
Right.
Can I go back to the question I was asked in terms of Black and brown communities and what we...
Yes, ma'am.
I think that one of many things that we need to take into account is the fact that until very, very recently, we didn't think we had the luxury of worrying about how we feel about things and how it affected us. That was a rich people's problem. Our struggle was day-to-day sustenance, putting food on the table, making sure our children and our husbands were safe and our sons were safe, so that eating all of that trauma and swallowing it all these years. I mean, first of all, was a survival strategy. And I don't think we need to diminish that at all. But I also think that we need to take into account the fact that this is a new trip for us all. It was day before yesterday when we considered mental illness or a lack of emotional stability a weakness. We weren't recognizing the fact we've been tamping down or self-medicating all these things for all of these years.
That's right.
With alcohol, or in my case, food.
Me too.
And because I'm
glass of wine.
Pluralize that, and then it'll be in my category. But the fact of the matter is, I did not realize I was eating my stress. And, pushing it down with food. And I'm thankfully with a support group now that helps me recognize that. And sleeping, quality of sleep is so important.
That's a good one.
And we're lucky if we can get to bed 9, 10 o'clock and wake up early enough to get our kids ready, go to the job, answer to people who have no respect for us, come home and suffer all the minor, microaggressions throughout the course of a day, and come home and try to pick up and nurture our children and think everything is okay. Because we're still alive.
Okay.
We've got to raise the bar in terms of our expectations for our own quality of life.
That's right.
And I think we have a big responsibility in our communities to share with our sisters and share with our families that responsibility. It is not only okay not to be okay. You have to be aware of that you may not be okay, even though you feel like everything is going fine.
Right.
Now, we don't want everybody going around having a breakdown every 5 minutes and being a drama queen. But the fact of the matter is we still have to be self-loving,
humanized,
self-aware, and we have to help our sisters. We have a responsibility to each other as well.
That's right. And check your insurance. If you have medical insurance, there's a very good chance that the same way your insurance covers you going to your primary care physician, your insurance also covers you going to a mental health professional to talk to somebody, and it may just be going to have a conversation to say, I have this 16-year-old in my house and they stress me out.
Oh, yes. If you have a 16-year-old,
I have one in my house and it stressed me out.
Look, Natalie and I was on the phone today and she said, oh my God. And I said, what's wrong? She said, Jeremiah sent me another bill. I said, oh, your son? She was talking about the business.
No.
I do want to speak about one of the things you mentioned that is directly tied to mental health within the Black and Brown communities is racial trauma. And I think, like you said, just most recently with the pandemic, we've opened up about the trauma that we have suppressed when it comes to racial injustice. And it is hard when you look for a therapist and you're like, how is someone supposed to relate to me if they don't look like me? And then there's a shortage of Black and Brown therapists. And so, Cherise, when you talked about that, finding someone, that was very important for me. And it was so hard to find someone, to the point that I started procrastinating on actually having a therapy because I couldn't find someone that I felt related to me. So I want to kind of transition into that because I think that's really important for organizations like Lucia, with you, with the Carry Me Foundation, and with the businesses that we have, or a Black-owned therapist center, Cherise, is important to have resources available that are relatable to people. Because a lot of corporations, it's like, okay, well, we're offering this to you, but are you offering something that they can relate to, that they're willing to let their guards down and let up the things that we've suppressed? That's where the challenge has been. It's great to have the conversation, but are we really offering tools that will allow people to be transparent and to be vulnerable to the conversation?
Right. You're absolutely right. You have to feel safe.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I was alluding to. It depends on where the employee is and how comfortable they feel about going to an EAP therapist per se, because the level of trauma is great. And with what's happening and what we're seeing, pandemic, and with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and the list goes on, it's like this never ending horror reel. Ending grief, this never ending pain, and you can't come up from it. You it's on the news, it's on social media, it's everywhere. And so that safety, that representation, or just having other clinicians that are not of color be trained on how to be supportive, to be present and welcoming and safe for a person of color to want to come and share,
I wonder if you have any thoughts on, like, if there are ways or tools in communication that we are not leveraging in order to really, and I don't know if that's a marketing question or just a general communication question. Is there more that can be done to send this message to more people?
I think the best way, and we're seeing it a lot now, is by being open and honest, having the conversation. The topic is very difficult for me at times, most recently because I lost a very close friend to suicide maybe a few months ago in March. And her personal struggles with mental health were not public, were not known. They were things that she battled internally. And one of the things I wanted to mention, and I think your question kind of ties into it, is we're living in an age on social media where it has become the measuring stick for success, for what a happy marriage looks like, what a beautiful family looks like, you know, how much am I attaining, even, you know, our accolades, it's just, it can be overwhelming because we're looking at it all the time. We're judging ourselves and we're trying to measure up, you know, and be better than we were yesterday. And then, you know, you have the hustle mantras, and there's so much that is pervasive in messaging that I think can be counterproductive. So one of the things I talk about when I do some of my social media trainings is authenticity. And I don't mind being myself because I think it's more relatable than an image of perfection. Because what I know about humanity and about human beings is that we are all struggling. We are. That's the nature of life. So when people share and when they're open and when they're honest about how difficult motherhood is and parenting, how difficult divorce is, how difficult it is to manage careers, and you figure out where the support systems are, you talk, you share, you communicate. I think that's what helps. Yes. Ultimately, and not necessarily having to put up an image of perfection and I've got it figured out and I'm taking vacations every week and I'm making so much money. That's like pressure, right?
Right.
What we can be honest about, I'm still figuring it out. I'm trying to every day. I'm trying. I am trying.
That's so true.
I think honest communication.
That's so true. And not just on social media, right? But even in the circles that we're in every day. It's so important to be honest. Like, yes, my husband and I have been married 20 years, but guess what? We haven't liked each other every day of those 20 years. It's okay.
Run that back, Natalie.
We still gonna be together, but it's okay not to have this perfect image. And don't think that it's the end of the world. My children are great, but they are not perfect. Let me tell you how they got on my nerves.
Well, are they human being children?
Yes, okay. They are. These little people, you know, and it's okay. And even in circles, and I find, because that's just who I am. Like, if you ask me, I'm going to tell you the truth. And I'll tell you, no, there are days that I wanted to make my husband a speed bump, but I chose not to.
Okay, I'm going to remember that one.
But I've chosen not to because, you know, he got to help me finish raising these kids.
Right.
So, but I found that when I say things like that, like it brings down a wall.
It does.
And other women be like, oh, for real? Oh, well, let me tell you, you know, and you can start to have conversations like, yeah, no, everything isn't perfect. It's not just on social media, but when we're having those personal interfaces and interactions with each other, it's okay to be honest. And I had a curated image of what people think it should look like.
But you know what my concern is, and it's something I face socially all the time, is that in our circles and in our families and in our social groups, people are very often not accepting and are shocked and clutch the pearls if you speak any kind of reality about what's going on in your real life. Yeah. I think because we try to create these false constructs as to what our world should look like and how we should manage it. But that's also a part of our normalizing eating our trauma.
Right.
I think, and trying to survive it. It's easier to create a facade and try to hide behind it than to confront, accept, understand our limitations, our fears, our traumas, and our imperfections, which if we're human, we will have lots of them. Thank God for that.
That's right.
Thank God we're not just machines. But I certainly get it. But in my world, it's very difficult to be just frank Well, it's not difficult for me. It's difficult for them to hear. Sometimes people are like, "Oh Lord, why are you talking about that?" And that's because you asked me how I'm doing, and I'm gonna tell you.
And that's me.
You don't want to know? Don't ask.
Don't ask me. Yes, and I had to get okay with that because at one point, because I grew up in a church community, and if you've grown up in a church community, you know people in church tend to put up what they want you, just like social media. It started in church before social media. They put up, you know.
With Natalie, how you doing?
Natalie, you just said something. You just said something.
She did.
I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was the same. I mean,
before social media.
Yeah, but I had to learn that it's okay, like not to be honest. And people look at me and they clutch their pearls, but while you're clutching your pearls, there's a lady over there, another young lady who I'm helping by being honest, because for me, it was a matter of I didn't have anyone to talk to. So I've chosen to be that person that people can approach. And I've done that just by being honest. Mm-hmm. You know, you never know who you can help, who you can pull back from a ledge by just saying, no, my world isn't perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's okay.
All right, Natalie, I'm calling you.
Call me. I'm going to refer you to Cherise, but call me. I'll listen and then refer you.
So I have a question for you guys. How is this directly tied to Black independence and us celebrating Juneteenth, which I feel like is long overdue? Mm-hmm. But I know we want to play a game on that, right, Nady? But before we jump into that game,
okay,
because people are probably like, why are we talking about mental health this month as we're talking about Black independence? So how is that directly tied? Let's hear. Cherise, are they correlated?
They're correlated because, you know, there's some trauma attached to being enslaved and knowing that you're free. Finding that out much delayed, but then there's some freedom and liberation and independence in you are free. And what do you do with freedom? And what does it look like? And how do you embrace just who you are, where you've come from, acknowledge where you want to go? So I think it ties in together to know where your past, what your past was, what your history, what your ancestry was, what that pain was, and how to shift, not acknowledge it, but where to find some joy, where to be yourself, where to just be present as yourself. So I think a lot has shifted as far as Black and Brown communities embracing who they are, not conforming to the standard of society or bowing down to the systemic oppressions and, you know, calling out things. There's just, you know, embracing art, Black artists, Black filmmakers, yes. Black owned businesses. Like there's so much. So the it's limitless. Black independence is limitless to me.
Yeah. It makes me happy when we think about that. So, Nettie, let's see how much we know about this, right?
Okay. You know, every time I play this game, I feel like I learn something myself. So I am going to ask a series of questions and our guests can jump in or we'll just start with you, Cherise, or no, with Sommer. We'll start with you and then we'll work our way around. So Sommer, Juneteenth is a combination of the words June and
19.
Yes. Correct.
I got that one first. I should have went first. You should have stuck with me.
I can go first.
Cherise, you can have this next one. What state was Juneteenth first celebrated in? South Dakota. Oh, okay.
Don't need the multiple choice.
Okay.
You were studying.
Lucia, which U.S. president finally brought an end to slavery?
I haven't found one yet, but it's purported to be Abraham Lincoln.
The shade!
That was a great answer.
I love it.
Okay, on that shady note, Sommer, what was the name of the executive order that freed slaves in the U.S.? The Emancipation Proclamation, Bill of Rights, or the Emancipators' Guidelines?
The Emancipation Proclamation.
Y'all know your stuff. Very good. Okay, Cherise. Is Juneteenth a federal holiday?
Yes, it is.
It is now.
It is now.
It is now. It wasn't before, but it is now.
You know what, Natalie? Why don't you jump in here for a second? What is another name for Juneteenth? Summer Day, Jubilee Day, Freedom Day.
Oh, is it Freedom Day or is it Jubilee Day?
I hear both, but it is Freedom Day.
Yeah.
Summer Day.
You've heard Summer Day? Oh, she likes Summer Day.
I would use Summer.
Sharon, in what year did Juneteenth become an official federal holiday?
1865, right?
Well, listen to the question.
Oh.
Become an official federal holiday.
Oh, a federal holiday. Oh, was that last year or what was just this year? This year? 2020. Yeah, I would say last year, which is crazy. Can you imagine 1865 to 2021?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Lucia, I want some more shade from you. So let's go.
Okay,
it's not shade.
I did not intend that.
It's not shade. It's just that good old Miami.
It's true.
It's that good old Miami palm tree.
What it is facts. In which Texas city did Gordon Granger announce the end of slavery? Galveston, El Paso, or San Antonio?
Galveston.
Y'all are ready, boy. Sommer. Which war prompted the end of slavery in the U.S.? The Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Spanish-American War?
Civil War.
Civil War. Cherise, which company added Juneteenth as an official holiday on its calendar app in 2018? Motorola, Apple, or Google?
Google.
Apple, Google, Apple.
Google, Apple.
I guess I'm going to go with Google.
Apple.
Dang.
Oh, wow.
You were close.
Yeah, that's why I said both, but I can't.
Right. Sharon, what food do people eat on Juneteenth? I don't know what that means.
Don't do that. That's I feel like that was going the wrong way.
Black food or red food? I don't understand this question.
What?
No.
What happened?
Should we skip this one?
We should definitely eat what the soul wants.
Right. Yeah. So we're going to skip this one.
It is emancipation, right? We're free.
Right. We free, right?
I mean, that's the minimum.
Yes.
I was like, Nady, if that thing says chicken watermelon, I'm about to.
So when I first read it, I was like, oh my God, before I read these choices, let me just skip it really quick. Lucia, what are the colors of the Juneteenth flag?
I have no idea, but I'm going to assume it's black, red, green, yellow. I totally missed.
That's what, so I thought it was a combination of those colors. It's not. I actually had to go Google it because I was surprised by the answer. Anybody else want to take a shot at it?
I thought it was those colors.
I thought it was too.
We asked everybody to wear one of those colors.
Whose creation is this flag? Let's start with that.
Okay, that is a good question.
That I don't know the answer to, but the colors are red, white, and blue. Isn't that wild?
They are red, white, and blue.
Well, that makes it depends on when that flag was created as to whether or not that makes sense. I can imagine in 1865 it made a lot of sense.
Right.
Well, I was very surprised by that answer, Lucia. I was with you on those other colors, but you guys did fantastic.
Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now, one of the questions you asked was, how long has it been a federal holiday? Mm-hmm. And we said 2021. But there are some people who have been celebrating Juneteenth for a very long time. Mm-hmm. Do you guys feel it was necessary to make it a federal holiday?
I didn't feel it was necessary, but it was absolutely welcomed as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I thought it was important to bring it to the broader community of United States of America. And even with those who are the most curmudgeonly folks in terms of not being realistic about our experience in the United States, if it's a federal holiday, just as we had to learn on Columbus Day, what is it? Columbus, on the ocean blue sail in 1492 and that kind of stuff. It became conditioned and we learned it in that way. And I think it's an opportunity for more people to learn about the emancipation and actually how even setting our freedom was messed around with for 2.5 years or so before they even got the notice. So I think it's important for people to learn that as a part of a collective and cumulative information about our American experience. So I'm happy it's done.
Yeah,
it's not necessary, but it's good.
I think unconsciously what it means to that people were free but didn't know they were free. I think now at this time, it's important for that message to be clear that you are free and still mentally and physically and emotionally, there are people who still don't realize they are free. You are free to have joy. You are free to have dreams. You are free to be your authentic self in spaces. You are free to be different. You are free to enjoy being, like you said, a Black woman that doesn't have it all together, but still is doing your thing every day. You are free to be you. And I think that message is important. And I think when we celebrate Black independence, knowing that that makes me happy to be myself and it makes me feel proud to be like, I'm definitely working towards more of my freedoms. Yeah. And even as you think about mental health, I'm working towards where I could be free from, I call it nurturing pain of the past. I can free myself from some of those pains that I am harboring or nurturing of our past. And not always is it just social or racial injustice, but sometimes it's just trauma within your own life, disappointments, whether it's family or anything. I can be free from those things and I can celebrate me being independent from the things that have tried to hold me back in the past. And to me, that's like a celebration. I get excited to celebrate Juneteenth, you know? So anybody else, like, how do you guys feel about just educating people on the past and presence of Black history, Juneteenth, and just celebrating this freedom?
I feel great about it. I know there's so much more we have to discover about our past before I'm comfortable with the fact that we know all the things that made us who we are and what made this country what it is. There's a lot of uncovering we have to do because remember now, institutionalized 400 years of burying anything that told of our worth and our value and our contribution. We've got to dig it up. And we see a lot of stuff coming up now that's dribble and drabs, really, but they're very affirming things. But so before we can get comfortable and say we're going to celebrate our history, let's make it our mission to discover what that history is.
Right. I agree. Sommer, you look like you was about to say something.
Really just agreeing with Lucia was saying, and I'm very excited and happy that Juneteenth is a national holiday. I think it deserves recognition. I think it is worthy. We are worthy of the recognition on a national level. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I just think it's an opportunity, again, for us to learn about our history and for us to commit to using what we learn to empower us to be better and to do better and to become more and greater. So I think it's a launching pad for us.
Yeah, I felt like this past weekend, as all the festivities were happening for the celebrations, it just felt like this big old family reunion that you just didn't know all your cousins. Like they just
nice way to put it. Right, a very nice way to put it.
Right, it was just like, oh, I'm meeting more and more families. So, is there a right or wrong way for people of color and not of Black and brown skin tone to celebrate Juneteenth?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Because
I don't think there's a wrong way. I mean,
okay. So speaking of that, the reason I asked that, so Walmart recently was faced tons of backlash for their Juneteenth flavored ice cream.
Yeah,
and I wanted to know what y'all thought about that, because on one end we want people to celebrate with us, but then it's like, okay, well then you need to ask us first how to do it. Like,
it wasn't a celebration. That was a commercialization of
that was,
that our people would not have benefited from.
And that's why it felt so icky to people, because it was performative for the sake of revenue.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
So they were trying to capitalize off of
right.
the message.
Okay, and what's new about that in American history?
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
So, and that's just another slap in the face. So,
it is.
Right.
Another I'm glad they were called out on it, and I hope they're smart enough to continue to try to remedy that. Because imagine how much of what percentage of their income revenue is made from Black and brown people.
Oh, yes. And Walmart has always done commercials that represent Black and brown people. So it was very disappointing to see that part, because we're supposed to be evolving, and there are enough Black and brown people within corporations that should be like, like, how did that pass certain people's desks that it even
we don't know if they're in the C-suites that can make those.
Right, exactly. Because some of those conditions are also very performative, right?
Absolutely.
So then they need to be there with no expectation that they'll be part of the process.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And Summer, you were about to say something.
It's more to just sign off and not actually to have a voice, to be a voice.
Correct.
Right.
But just to sign off on stuff. Yeah.
We also need to know the history of Walmart. Just look it up.
Oh, I do.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to Black and browns and women, since it's an all women panel. Yes. Mm-hmm. Summer, you were going to say something?
So it was basically the same point that Natalie made, just, determining who's in the room, and are they really in the room, or are they just there to say we got somebody in the room?
Right.
Those decisions are being made.
Right.
Yeah. And are they confident with standing up for what's right?
The environment, right. Are they in an environment where that's allowed?
Right.
Or, encouraged.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Now, the last question as it relates to Juneteenth for me, having Juneteenth off, being that it's a observed holiday. Now, we get 4th of July off, or the day after. Now, there were a lot of corporations that did give you Monday off, but there were a lot that did not. How do we begin to address this? Because me personally, I'm like, well, use your PTO, take it off. Let's make a statement, because if we're off for 4th of July, then we should definitely be off for Juneteenth. What are y'all's feelings on that?
I agree with you. That it should be honored in the same way July 4th is. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to go about it for it to actually be in the way that it should be.
Yes, you do know how. You do know how. And don't think that we just got the MLK holiday in very, very recent memory, very recent history. Mm-hmm. And that was the first. I mean, we have some processes. Sharon, you're a process person. We have them to follow. And it's about, again, accountability. Absolutely about accountability. It's a federal holiday, and you don't get to negotiate those.
Right.
It's been settled by law, period, done. Full stop. So, again, why aren't people off? Who are the employers who are not letting people off?
Exactly.
And it says a lot. It says a lot if you're not.
Absolutely. It does. Mm-hmm. And it's time that I think that we were just talking about that a part of this independence is feeling free to speak that. Yes. As Sommer was saying with social media, we have the opportunity to speak out and speak together, to come in masses with social media. So that's one of the things that we, benefits us to be able to come together on messages and make them widespread. Having social media, things can go viral so quickly. So it's using our voices and using that platform to help positive messages be spreaded across the nations, Yeah. So it has just been so exciting and liberating, and just, I don't know, I just feel amazing when I'm around other beautiful, intelligent, just honest Black women in general. That is what this show is all about. But we want to end with this last little game, and it's called Missing Ingredients, right? And so everyone hates when you're missing an ingredient when trying to make something good, right? When you're trying to make a recipe, you're like, God darn it, I forget that. The easiest one is to say peanut butter and jelly. You have the peanut butter, you don't have the jelly. So I want to hear from each of our guests on a missing ingredient that we need in order to bridge the gap in creating awareness and understanding Black independence, progression and culture, not only in corporate and diverse spaces inside our Black community, but also outside. So basically an example would be, just like you were saying with Juneteenth, we have this federal holiday, but a missing piece is that there is no negotiation that it should be observed as a federal holiday. That is a missing piece. You cannot say that's a good recipe if it's missing that part. So let's start with you, Cherise. Are you ready? You want to tell a missing ingredient that is keeping us from progression in our culture?
Yeah, I would say unity. We're not unified as a people. We come together for certain things, but like not all the things. And we need to be unified. That's a missing ingredient, I would say.
So consistent unity.
Yeah. Across the board. Yeah. To get things moving. Because if we're like a couple of us straying behind, then it's move forward.
Right. Okay. Sommer.
I think education and access to education. And when I'm speaking about education, I mean specifically Black, Brown education, knowing self, knowing our history, knowing our greatness, and it being something that even if it's not taught in schools, it's taught at home.
Yes.
So that we love ourselves, we love our people, and we love our community. So I think that's a big missing piece.
I agree. Lucia.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I can think of two things, and I think they're tied together really as a missing ingredient in terms of how we can understand and share awareness. One is authenticity. I can't even say the word, much less do it. Authenticity. And that is, we have to have people who are representative of us, by us, and for us, helping imbue the language in the broader community with what we know to be real. And also what we know is our limit in terms of the things that we can accept. Right. And I also think the second thing, you did say one, but I talk too much.
That's okay.
Thoroughness.
It's a talk show.
It's not too much.
What's the talk on a talk show?
I think a missing ingredient is just the thoroughness of messaging. Just as we just talked about in terms of Walmart with the ice cream for Juneteenth. Yeah. That was not our message. Yeah. And the message that they were trying to convey was, look at us, we're so wonderful. We recognize this. But the thoroughness even of that did not hit the mark. But I think we need to own our own messages. We need to share them very thoroughly in every fabric of our community. And we need to do it with the authenticity that only we have.
Yeah. Agree. Now, Natalie or Lady, did you have one?
I think I do. I would say intentionality. Like I have a lot of friends that operate in the diversity and inclusion space within corporations. And one of the things that I hear from all of them is that they often feel like they were hired just to check a box, but that there's no real intention behind the process. There's no real commitment to the work that needs to be done. So thank you for the job, but let me do my job and join me in the journey of changing things, right? So I think that there needs to be real intention behind what a lot of these corporations are doing to quote unquote bridge the gap. Again, going back to my previous point, it just feels performative.
Yeah, and that kind of co-signs on what Lucia was saying. And I like that you said join me, not support me.
Right.
That's two different things.
Yeah.
Join me. Because when you join me, you're also supporting.
And when you support me, you are not involved in the process.
Right. But when you join me, you're supporting me and you're involved.
Correct.
Good. Natalie?
An action word. I actually don't have anything to add. I think that our guest and Nady have covered it. Honestly, I have nothing to add.
Well, I will say one of the things that we talked about a lot tonight as we close out was just education and history and messages. So if there's a book that anyone wants to share for the masses to know, something that they can read, please say it now. Or even if you want to send it to me, we can drop it on our page or on our story, because a lot of times, people are like, well, what do I read? Where do I get the right message? So if there's any knowledge that you feel like we can share tonight, share it now or send it to us so we can share it later.
I think folks can start with the 1619 project if they haven't read it.
Yes.
Start there. And a whole world will be opened up into what you need to be looking for next.
The 1619
project. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great.
Got it.
So
you ready? So I just wanted to give a special thank you to you, Cherise, Sommer, and Lucia, for taking time out of your busy schedules to spend a few minutes with Natalie, Sharon, and I, and all of the other Empresses who are watching the show. Thank you for everything that you all brought to this discussion. I'm so excited for the conversation and for where the conversation will lead, and how I believe we'll be able to positively impact other people who are watching the show tonight. So, Cherise, tell us, where can you be found on social media?
Wait. Sorry. Can I have like 3 seconds?
Oh, your guard your jeans.
Oh, we forgot our guard
I'm so sorry
today. More than like 7 seconds.
Look, this conversation was so good. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nate.
So, part of what brings me joy is to make sure that, women, especially women who look like me, that we own our intellectual property, right? That we own the fruits of our mind and our labor. And most of us are out here grinding and building beautiful brands. And there's so much joy in me to make sure that we are doing that on solid legal ground, which I think ties into today's discussion, right? Like, we are no longer working without strategy, right? We're being very intentional about what we do. And one of the ways that we guard our genius and we guard our brands is through the trademark process. I won't bore you on the legal part of that, but there is some breaking news that I wanted to share with y'all, right? We
got a trademark.
A registered trademark with the USPTO. Okay, this is not the original. I just printed this off the website. The original comes in the mail in like a few weeks. But I mean, it came in today. I was like, what better day for it to come in than on the day that we're recording. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for trusting me with the process. Congratulations.
It takes a year, you guys. So once you put it in, we have to actually show that we're doing work and what we're doing. Right. So we have been waiting. So yes, one of the Natalie and I, we always keep in the back of our mind the story that we heard from T.D. Jakes about Oh Happy Day. And he talked about how the artist that created Oh Happy Day did not own the rights to that song. And everyone knows that song. It's on so many movies. It's sang in almost every church. And their family don't own the rights to that. And that was one of the things when we met Nady, it was kindred, because we said everything that we do, we wanted to make sure that we put legalities before creativity. So, and that's a lot of what we've been talking about tonight, even with the holiday, knowing that you're free and having things in place for you to live in that freedom. And so we get to own our brand and make money off our brand and have generational wealth for our families to come. So thank you, Nate.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Now,
our wonderful IP attorney, she makes sure we have all those things in place.
So I know it is getting late. It's been, but I wanted Lucia and Sommer to tell us a little bit about the Carrie Meek Foundation, because if you do not know, you better get ready to learn. Just tell us real quick and where they can find you. Huh?
I thought you were getting ready to quote Biggie on that.
Now you know.
No, now you know.
Now you know.
Just real quick, you can tell us a little bit about it and where they can find you.
You can find us at Carrie Meek Foundation .org. You can find us, thanks to Sommer, on our social media, Instagram and Twitter and all the other things you young folks do. Thank God I have Sommer, because we still be writing it smoke signals if it was up to me. But the Meek Foundation was created back, years ago, just before my mom, Congresswoman Carrie Meek, retired from Congress. And she retired in 2003. So I think they created it in 2001. And it was created in order to perpetuate the legacy of my mother's legislative work in health, education, housing, community, and economic development. So that's what we do. We're located at Opa-locka Airport. Also, one of these things, in case you don't know, yes, we did do the Amazon development at Opa-locka Airport. And therefore, our building is also there. And reach out to us if you need meeting space or workspace, because we are absolutely overjoyed to host events that are supportive of our community efforts. We do believe in a buy us, for us, with us kind of concept. And so what we do also is buy for and with our community, particularly in Opa-locka and especially in Florida City.
Great. And Sommer, where can they find the Carrie Meek Foundation on social media?
Our Instagram page is at Carrie Meek FNDN. Our Twitter handle is also at Carrie Meek FNDN. And then Facebook is Carrie Meek Foundation. Great.
Great. And then those 4 pillars that you mentioned, that's the key to financial freedom, just since we're talking about freedom. Cherise, tell us about your clinic, about your therapist office, and where can they find you, especially those looking for Black therapists?
Most definitely. So you can find me on www.cornerstonecounseling.center, or you can email me at info@cornerstonecounseling.center. And you can find me on Instagram at CCC_counseling. And it's telehealth for right now because COVID is still.
I'm going to ask that.
Oh, good.
That's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Natalie,
where can you be found on social media for those who are interested in getting a trademark?
I am at Guard Your Genius on IG.
Say it again.
Guard Your Genius on IG.
And now that we have our trademark, we're going to tell y'all, live up.
Right.
She don't just talk about it, y'all. She actually knows.
My inner Sierra is telling you, level up. 1 down and 3 more to go. Any news on Art Walk Presents?
We'll get through those too.
Yes.
All right. And then you can find Enterprise Empress on all of the social media platforms, Enterprise Empress. But most importantly, please go to our YouTube page and subscribe so that you can get more information about the wonderful women who are out here doing things in our community and learn from their journey as we also learn from you. So hit us up in the DM as well. Okay. We thank you guys for doing the show. We thank everyone for tuned in. Until another week. What does Natalie always say?
Wear your crowns, lady. Wear them well.
And wear them well. And if you see someone's crown tilted, talk about it today, just fix it.
Help a sister out. That's all. Help a sister out.
Look. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.